And by the way, right after the announcement of this, more campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign they think in history. Almost $400 million. 400!
This will be eventually overruled after the election. But what happens if there's a close election and Biden, squeaks through and then the case is overruled?
It's not easy to deal with, when you have your kids involved or your family, your wife, and you read stuff and most of it is untrue. It's just totally untrue.
Trump shatters fundraising goals. He appeared in Arizona, our backyard, and made this announcement. Over $400 million have come in. And then he left Arizona, went over to San Francisco, sat down with some of the tech bros, David Sachs, Chamath Palihapitiya, and others, raked in another $12 million, and the momentum seems like it just continues. We've got more reaction for the verdict fallout. The 34 felony guilty counts seems like they're backfiring on the left, and we're going to talk about it today, get reaction from a bunch of different places. But here was Trump explaining how the reaction, the momentum is only increasing in the aftermath of the verdict.
I just went through a rigged trial in New York.
That's right.
With a highly conflicted, and I mean highly conflicted judge, where there was no crime. It was made up, fabricated stuff. They didn't want to bring the case. They could have brought the case 7 years ago. It's only when you run for office they bring cases. But they would have done that 7 years ago thing, not in the middle of my presidential campaign, where we're beating Biden, by the way, by a lot. Did you see? And by the way, right after the announcement of this, more campaign funds were given to this campaign than any campaign they think in history. Almost $400 million.
400 million. That's a lot.
It's never been, nobody's ever seen, because they know it was rigged. They know it's a corrupt system. They know all about it. But with your help, less than 5 months from now, and we're going, and I'll tell you what, we have to change the system. We have to straighten out what's going on in these courts. We got a rigged deal going, this whole country, and we've got to do it. And those appellate courts have to step up and straighten things out, or we're not going to have a country any longer.
Yeah, he's right. We're getting into a post-law environment. There are portions and locations in this country where the law doesn't matter. Even the White House, the law doesn't matter. Biden says we can just ignore the Supreme Court, just overrule them essentially. Where's the authority to waive student loans? Doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyways. So Trump announcing that they're doing very well. People are tired of what they're seeing. And after Trump was in Arizona, he went over to San Francisco, and the scene there was wild. Trump everywhere. Make America great again. Overflowing in San Francisco? What on earth? Republican presidential candidate Trump raised $12 million on Thursday in addition to what he said in Arizona. This came after that. Two sources said, at an event hosted by two capitalists at San Francisco. We know these two, David Sachs, Chamath Palihapitiya. They do the All In podcast. Major event. Top tickets, $500,000 per couple. Sold out. It raised $12 million. San Francisco's heavily liberal, but there were a lot of people out there. Executives from crypto exchanges, Coinbase were there. Trump talked about Senator Elizabeth Warren, saying she's coming after crypto, so the crypto bros are jumping in. Nice. The crypto industry is trying to get regulated, and Sachs and Palihapitiya have talked about their investments in crypto and Bitcoin and how this is now creating a new energy. Sachs thanked J.D. Vance, who was there. San Francisco's fertile grounds for Democrats, but Trump just went in there and cleaned up. David Sachs came out, also posted this on X. He says, why I'm backing President Trump, and people were wondering where he was going to land for a little bit because it seemed like he was floating with Kennedy. But he says, as many press accounts has reported, I'm hosting an event for Trump at my home in San Francisco. Over the last couple of years, I've hosted events for many other people, Ron, Vivek, Kennedy. I think he came out originally as a Ron guy, as well as several congressional figures. But today, I'm giving my endorsement to our 45th president, Donald J. Trump, to be our 47th president. My issues are the following. Trump can lead us back. He says the economy's in shambles. Biden took an economy that was recovering and made it worse. Did this despite the warnings. Foreign policy's been a disaster. Trump left with ISIS defeated, Abraham Accords in place. Biden has made several mistakes. Biggest blunder? Ukraine. War of attrition grinds on. He's wanting to commit us even further. Borders a disaster. Ushered in de facto open border policy, and of course, lawfare. Our main issue, a bedrock of the political stability we've enjoyed for 250 years, is now gone. Garland took a look at the J6 situation, used it as a cudgel to take out Trump, and so this is the best option that we have. People are sick of the lawfare, and they're standing up and reacting. This was a guy who was not on the team for a while. Now he is. This is Julia. Bill Barr says Trump's case is an abomination, and this whole thing is undermining the legitimacy and the credibility of our justice system. Here is Bill Barr also catching the memo.
I was surprised that they went ahead with the case because there really was nothing there. There was no crime, and they never were able to really articulate it until after the defense rested its case.
After the,
so I thought the whole thing was a travesty. I wasn't surprised by the verdict because the way the case was conducted, there was never really any discipline on trying to make the prosecutor establish what the elements of the crime were and what evidence he had to do it. It was just assumed from the beginning that there was some kind of federal election campaign violation, which there wasn't.
They just made that up. They didn't even present testimony or allow the defense to present any testimony on that. All right, let's see.
System of justice that is becoming more and more evident. But I also want to point out that what does this do to our body politic? What does this do to our country?
Brexit.
Say this case is going to be overruled because there are just multiple errors and violations of constitutional rights, which, Andy McCarthy and Jonathan Turley have amply discussed on your show. This will be eventually overruled after the election. But what happens if there's a close election and Biden, squeaks through and then the case is overruled? Half the country is going to feel that this was a stolen election.
They're stealing it right now.
And, this is a grave injustice and disservice to the country.
Yeah, it's not just the one case. There's 4 prosecutions happening. They tried to throw him off the ballot. They're trying to bankrupt him with civil verdicts, civil lawsuits by E. Jean Carroll. It's a never-ending onslaught. And it's nice that Bill's finally waking up about this, but other people on the Republican side are still quiet. Should be all hands on deck pounding the table. This is the end of the justice system if this stuff is allowed to stand.
Defense lawyers are absolutely correct. The whole purpose of the gag order was to protect the integrity of the process, to make sure that the trial was not disrupted by what was said. The trial is now...
That's the defense perspective, but the whole purpose of this is in a post-law America, the law doesn't matter. It's about waging war on your political enemies, and they have the tools to do it.
Over. The verdict's been delivered, and now everyone out there is talking about it, including, as you point out, Michael Cohen and Stormy Daniels. And the president, like anyone else, has a right to defend himself in the court of public opinion, especially when he's running for the presidency of the United States. He has to be able to attack the charges, to assert that the witnesses against them weren't telling the truth, and point out all the flaws with the case and some of the rulings by the judge, which are inexplicable. He should be allowed to do that.
So given what you've seen on this judge, quickly if you can, Bill, what do you expect at this sentencing?
I hope that he doesn't do what they usually do, what the left usually does, which is to go too far and either deny him his freedom or impose a severe gag order on him. I think that it would sort of affect people's attitude toward the ultimate fairness of this election.
Oh, man. Bill seems nervous, doesn't he? Seems like he knows where they're going on this thing. Are they going to put him in jail? Are they going to put him on home detention, home confinement? Bill's getting a little nervous. I hope they don't do it, but why wouldn't they? They've already gone this far. They're like just an inch away from total victory. Why wouldn't they seize it? The more this goes on, the more and more we get nervous that they're going to really try to pop off on this one, but we hope they don't. So here is what this guy, Dr. Phil, said. He was hanging out with Trump, having an interview with him, and he agrees with us that this whole thing was rigged. Mercan tipped the scales of justice, all done to stop Trump. And they've been brainwashed for decades to think that anybody who's charged with a felony or anytime there's an officer of the law who's sitting in a courtroom and they're all pointing their fingers at a defendant and the judge is there and you're at the defendant's table, people just think instinctively, you must have done something to get here, because people have a hard time putting themselves in that person's shoes. They have a hard time believing until it happens to them. Then they come into a criminal defense attorney's office like mine and they would say, I never thought ever that it would be me. I know, that's what everybody says. But you don't realize that you can be prosecuted for being completely innocent until, unfortunately, it's often too late. So Trump was also talking about Shifty Schiff and his watermelon head. Just no reason to really play this clip other than the fact that Adam Schiff got censured, and it's important we remember that he has a big watermelon head and a tiny pencil. He got censured also, by the way. So here is Kellyanne Conway. There's a lot of reaction saying that Trump is going to go after his opponents and retribution and revenge and all this type of nonsense. But the fact is, if you've committed a crime in America, if you've conspired to rig an election, if you've entrapped people, you've created propaganda, deleted evidence, manipulated government resources in order to do illegal things, well, it's illegal. You should be prosecuted. No one's above the law in this country. They said it first. So now we don't give anybody any leeway. Now Trump, when he wins, I do hope that there are some serious changes at the DOJ, the FBI, and that the people who were responsible for undermining our judicial system are brought to justice. That's real justice in America. So Kellyanne Conway is here pushing back on some of these claims that Trump is going to be a dictator or whatever they're trying to say.
Repeat it, because this is the new narrative. narrative by all the lemmings in the mainstream media this week. Trump wants revenge and vengeance. He's the one who's had that visited upon him. And if you need any evidence, look no further than how he just stood down in any kind of prosecution of Hillary Clinton and retribution after he beat her fairly and squarely and racked up 304 electoral votes in 2016. Many people said lock her up. I think now repeat it because
that's right. He didn't do anything with Hillary Clinton. He could have, and he didn't. Maybe he should have. Maybe this time he will. Now, all that being said, RNC research is coming out. They just dropped this one. Trump's looking pretty good in those polls. And here is the report.
Is one of the swing states that would go the former president's way if the election were held today. Former President Trump leads President Biden in our new polls out tonight by 5 percentage points among registered voters in a head-to-head matchup. The margin is also 5, with 3 independent candidates included. Now let's go to Nevada. The former president leads the current commander-in-chief by a similar 5-point margin. He lost that state, as you see there on the right column, in 2020. The margin continues to be 5, again with the other independent candidates involved on that ballot.
Good over there.
The former president has erased a 10-point deficit from 2020 in the Commonwealth of Virginia. He is now tied with President Biden in what was blue Virginia. President's lead is 1 point in Virginia when you factor in the independents in that race. President Trump, in our latest poll, is ahead in Florida by 4 points. That is similar to his 2020 margin of victory in that state, and that lead expands to 7, again when including the other candidates.
Woo! All right, so Trump is looking good across the board. Democrats in panic mode, trying to figure out what to do about this. They've indicted Trump 4 times. They've tried to take him out via lawfare, and Trump just keeps pulling ahead. $400 million has now come in since the guilty verdict. You've got guys like the tech bros jumping in on this, the crypto bros, and the power just keeps increasing. And so we're going to be here continuing to cover this, the lawfare, the election, all the litigation surrounding it. Hopefully you join us as we continue on. Would love it if you subscribe. Thank you so much for liking this video, inviting someone you know or love to come over here and check this one out. We got more great content coming up. So if you enjoyed this video, we have an update on more hot water that Biden's into. So if you missed our segment on the trial, Hallie Biden and Hunter's daughter, Naomi, testifying, we'll link that one up for you over there, and we'll see you there and back here on the next one.